It's been 2 weeks already since we started our experiment. So are you interested in seeing the results? Hey YouTube, how are you doing? Today is a different experiment. I'm in my polytunnel. So if you guys don't know, if it's your first time following me, my name is Mecca. I live in the south of England. Sorry, I don't have my mic today, so there'll be a little bit of background noise. But I wanted to share an experiment with you, compost experiment. So this year we've had really poor growth with our compost. The ones we buy, essentially you either have no germination, or look at these plants are over a month old and they should be doing way better than this by this time with this heat, but they're not happy. The compost looks somehow. Anyway, so I decided, instead of faffing around with that, I'll try using my own homemade compost, which is this is what my homemade compost looks like. The only reservation I've had with using these all along has been weed seeds. So weed seeds are more common in homemade compost, especially if your temperature of your compost doesn't go really high. And this compost is not even up to a year old, it's about 6 months old, so I'm not too sure how well it will do with weed seeds. And this is the shop bought one. It looks really nice and fluffy. Did really well for me last year. And actually with some plants, let's say for instance beetroot is looking really happy in it, but brassicas don't like it. So I'm not sure, I'm not 100% sure, and a lot of other plants haven't liked it yet. So let's try and see. I'm gonna report some of my brassicas, my kale and some of my basil, and I'll see how they do. So this tray will be for my homemade compost. Clearly we've got the smaller modules, which is I've just cut there, and I've got the single individual ones, and in this tray will be the shop bought one, all the same. So let's join and see how this works out. So I'm just gonna go ahead and fill the pot just so you see, and we'll continue in a minute. I have filled this up. So this is shop bought and this is my own compost. Next, I will go ahead and just water it, soak the compost. I water from below, most importantly, just because I want to ensure that the roots of my plants get enough water. Now it's time to put the plants in. So I'm gonna start with where should I start? Let's start with some kale. So I'm going to have to do the kale equal sizes roughly. So these ones are roughly the same size because we want to be impartial as always. I'm gonna split that gently, get as much root as you can, and I'll put one there and one here, and I'll do the same, another one here, same one there into the shop bought one. So we have 3 of those. Next will be purple sprouting broccoli. This is like one of the big winter crops. Oh, this is not purple sprouting, this is calabrese. This is calabrese, and calabrese has done better than the other brassicas. Look at that root structure, look at that. So we're gonna split that in half again, and then I'm gonna put 3 in each and still put more there anyway. So make little holes. Obviously you just have to ensure you take as much roots as you can, and that gives the plant the best chance to survive. And you bury it quite deep as well. Last one. So 3 calabrese there, if that's clear. Can you see that? Okay, let's make sure we label our calabrese. Okay, that's calabrese. That other one is the broccoli. Okay, that's the curly kale. Calabrese broccoli. And then I'll do the same here. The next on our list will be my cabbages didn't do well at all. I sowed so many. Look, the red cabbage, I only have 2 surviving. So I would just put that in here and hopefully they will do well. I hope. It's in the, actually I should do one of each because I don't want to take a risk. It's too big a risk. So I don't have enough pots for that. I'll take one more from my shop pots one, my homemade one. What am I saying? Okay. So this is the cabbage. The red cabbage will go in one of each and we'll see how they do next to the calabrese, but I'll leave that one there. Okay, next will be our basil. One of it is scent leaf, which is the African basil, looking good. So I'm gonna put those in smaller trays, but this will all be okay. I've got room in my shop bot, so I'm gonna do a good amount. Separating these is so easy. They're really tiny, but they're easy to separate. Look at that root structure from a tiny plant. I will come back in 2 weeks time and see how well they've done. Who knows?
2,000 years later.
It's been 2 weeks already since we started our experiment. So are you interested in seeing the result? Now, 2 things I'm looking out for. First and foremost is obviously leaf growth, because we're growing brassicas. How well has my homemade compost done in comparison to the shop bought one? And then the second one is also the root structure. How well are the roots doing? And all in all, I just want to see, is it really effective to use my own compost, or should I not bother and just use the shop bought compost for seedlings? Though obviously for my beds, I love using my homemade compost because it's cheaper, it's more affordable. But when it comes to seedlings, because of the troubles we've had and because I'm not sure about the water retention ability, the weed seeds, I'm not keen on using my own homemade compost. But are you ready to see the results? Do you want to see? Let me show you. Ta-da! Well, we've got a few damage from caterpillars, but can you see? We have a clear winner, right? Yes, we do. So let me bring this camera down and show you what my results have looked like. Okay, I must apologize. The last video, the first set of the videos didn't show exactly how well this thing was, put out. But bottom line is, I have a lot of the basil here, some of the African basil there, that's African basil. The normal basil, that's the same thing I have there. Normal basil, African basil. And then I had some kale, I had some calabrese, and I had one purple cabbage there. So let's start with the basil. Now, because the basil from this is obviously, as you've guessed, this is my homemade compost. 2 things I must say though. The homemade compost, the basil was put in this little tiny, modules. But can you see the root structure at the bottom? Not too bad. And I don't have weed seeds. Let's have a good look. I don't really have weed seeds. The basil has done really well. This is exactly 2 weeks from potting up. So I'm really happy. I'm actually really pleased with using my homemade compost. Now the basil from the shop bought compost, on the other hand, we still have good root structure. So I am guessing, let's put this camera up a bit. I am guessing that if I actually had the bigger pots of the basil in these ones, so if these were bigger pots, I think we would have had better growth because the roots were looking for soil as opposed to these ones. But they look really good in comparison. There's no huge difference, is there? So homemade compost, my homemade compost has good drainage. I have experience from this. And then let's look at the kale. Now we had issues with slugs and caterpillars eating some of the leaves. So one tray was more affected. So if you have a look here, you can see slug trails. I don't know if that's showing you. Can you see the slug damage there? So there is slug damage to this one, but I can't even find the slugs. A couple of weeds in the homemade ones, whereas this is the shop bought one. I think this is like an amazing, yeah, clear winner. Can you see that? Homemade, shop bought. So we had faster growth definitely in the shop bought, because the shop bought one had some amendments, but I think my homemade one is actually really rich. I have a video how I make it if you want to see how I make my homemade compost. Really simple, not complex, but then we also have good results. So that is that. And then let's look at the calabrese or broccoli. This one again, I think is a clear winner, although we've had damage to the leaves. So this other tray had more damage. I don't think that has anything to do with the compost. I think it's just the location. And then that is the shop bought one. Really miles ahead again. So that's that one. But I have one thing that has won here, and that is my curly kale. Okay, curly kale, although I don't have the red ones in my shop bought, but I have this one. So the curly kale in the homemade compost did really well, way better than the one in the, this is the shop bought, I beg your pardon, this is the homemade compost wins here. So I'm not sure, that is a bit inconclusive in that respect. I saw a massive caterpillar when I came in here, and I'll show you what they've been doing. So you had the butterflies coming. Can you see that caterpillar? Yeah, let's put the focus on it. It wants to eat. Let's show off. Can you see that's a caterpillar there? And they have been, I've just knocked it off. They have been munching on the leaves, and there's a few little ones there. So as a result, that has affected the leaf growth. Now I want to show you, we showed you the plants that were a month old that hadn't transplanted for various reasons. These plants were a month old. So obviously the weather has really made a difference to growth. Can you see that? The purple cabbage will give the best indication. So these plants are a month behind these ones. And the weather has made a difference, and obviously temperature. This is from my homemade compost. Yes, and this is shop bought. So you make that decision yourself, but I'm happy using my own compost now from this experiment results. I am really happy. Yeah, caterpillars are everywhere. I have to clean the leaves before I go ahead and transplant. I'm going to plant them out today, but I had to leave them all for the purpose of this experiment. Yeah, there's a bit of noise out there. I had to leave these ones out, to be fair, because of the video I was making, so that we could see clear visual of our results. So all in all, I have that comfort and confidence that I can use my homemade compost. So if you're a new gardener and you're not sure about using your homemade compost, this is like the sign that your homemade compost can work for your seedlings. I wouldn't necessarily start seeds in them, because they might be a bit less, have less draining capacity, unless you put something like vermiculite in it. Other than that, I would just go full speed and, use it to grow my plants. I have too many basil plants now. I don't know what to do with them, but I'm really happy otherwise. And yeah, let me know in the comment section what your experience has been using your homemade compost versus shop-bought compost. Obviously, simple composting, no complex composting practices here, but I'm really happy. Until next time, thank you for watching. If you've enjoyed the video, please give us a thumbs up. Has this video added value to you? Use your own compost without hesitations for seedlings. Even if you want it for seeds, I'm not that keen yet because of, like I said, the water drainage capacity of ability of my homemade compost, but not weed seeds, like hardly, look at this, hardly any weed seeds in my compost. And although the growth is sparse, I think it's done well for brassicas. So the nitrogen content is good. I don't know how the tubers will do, but all my sweet potatoes are growing in my homemade compost. So we'll know at the end of the season how that has done. Anyway, until next time, I'll see you in another video. Bye.